is Morning Brief at 9 this Friday morning. Here are the headlines we're tracking for you. The Reserve Bank of India is set to announce its final monetary policy decision of FY26 after the Union Budget, with rate stance and growth outlook in focus. India and the United States close in on a historic trade agreement as S. Jaishankar says talks are in the final stages and the deal will open a new phase with vast possibilities for bilateral ties. Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan defends Indo-US trade deal, says farmers and dairy interests are fully protected as he hits out at opposition over parliament protests. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India's new trade agreements with major economies have put the country at the center of global attention as nations line up to deepen economic ties with India. India restarts the long-pending free trade talks with the Gulf Cooperation Council after signing terms of reference aiming to boost trade, investment and energy security. Nearly 72% of Air India Group aircraft flagged for repetitive defects as government data in Lok Sabha highlights intensify DGC's safety surveillance. Union Cooperation Minister Amit Shah launches Bharat Taxi, India's first cooperative run ride-hailing platform, promising driver ownership, zero commission and pan-India expansion within 3 years. Gold and silver prices plunged sharply in Delhi as global sell-off and stronger US dollar dragged bullion, with silver crashing 10% and gold slipping below 1,61,000 rupees per 10 grams. India believes in an open, resilient and inclusive internet, IT Secretary S. Krishnan says, as the country backs multi-stakeholder internet governance and prepares to host ICANN's ICANN 85 meeting in Mumbai. The top story this morning, in just about an hour to go before the Reserve Bank of India announces its latest monetary policy decision today, marking the final policy review of this financial year 2025-26. Now, the six-member Monetary Policy Committee, chaired by Governor Sanjay Malhotra, began deliberations on February 4th. The February policy outcome assumes added significance as it comes soon after India's union budget, which outlined the government's fiscal roadmap and growth priorities. With that in place, the RBI stance will be closely watched for signals on how supportive monetary policy will remain for consumption, investment and credit growth in the financial months again. Now, at its previous meeting, the central bank cut the repo rate by 25 basis points to 5.25%, continuing its easing cycle. Following the move, the Standing Deposit Facility or SDF rate was set at 5%, while the Marginal Standing Facility or MSF rate and bank rate were fixed at 5.5%. The Monetary Policy Committee also retained a neutral stance, keeping its options open amid the evolving economic conditions about interest rates moving in either direction, up or down. Now, notably, this was the fourth rate cut since February of 2025. Over calendar year 2025, the RBI reduced the repo rate by a cumulative 125 basis points from 6.50%. After holding rates steady in August and October, the central bank resumed easing later in the year, setting the stage for an anticipated policy call this week. India and the United States are on the verge of sealing a landmark trade agreement, with negotiations now in their final phase, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said on Thursday in Washington after a series of high-level meetings. Now, calling the proposed pact historic, Jaishankar said it marks the beginning of a new phase in India-US relations, unlocking vast opportunities across trade, investment and strategic cooperation. After meeting Marco Rubio, Jaishankar said the historic India-US trade deal is in the final stages of detailing and will be completed very soon. It opens up a new phase in our bilateral ties with vast possibilities for the relationship, unquote. Jaishankar was speaking on the sidelines of the inaugural Critical Minerals Ministerial in Washington, where he also met Scott Bessent. He noted that the first tranche of the bilateral trade agreement is nearly ready, with a joint statement expected shortly. Now, once that statement is issued, the formal agreement could take 30 to 40 days to be finalized. According to the government, this initial framework will pave the way for tariff reductions by the United States. Once the joint statement is signed, the US is expected to cut tariffs on Indian goods to 18%, down from the reciprocal tariff of 25% plus the additional 25% levy, through the executive order announced earlier this week by Donald Trump. However, officials caution that procedural steps remain. Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal said the joint statement would later be converted into a legally binding agreement before tariff changes take effect.
Not directly with me, because that's being handled by Commerce and Industries Minister Piyush Goyal. What we have is, the Prime Minister and the President had their conversation. There were some announcements which came out of it. So thereafter, I think there's a detailing of the trade negotiations, which is sort of underway as we speak. So that's really where things are.
Meanwhile, Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan on Thursday strongly defended the Indo-US trade deal, rejecting opposition claims that it would harm Indian farmers and launching a sharp attack on the Congress over its conduct in Parliament. Now, responding to allegations by Rahul Gandhi and other opposition leaders, Chauhan said the agreement finalized under Prime Minister Narendra Modi represents a new example of diplomacy, development and dignity. He insisted that farmers' interests had been fully safeguarded. The minister described opposition criticism as driven by frustration over repeated electoral defeats. He accused the Congress of spreading misinformation, calling it a machine of lies and a market of rumors. Chauhan argued that the trade deal would, in fact, benefit farmers by boosting exports through lower tariffs. He cited rice exports worth 63,000 crore rupees to the US and said reduced duties would also help exporters of spices and textiles, indirectly benefiting cotton growers.
संदेह की कोई गुंजाइश नहीं है। कल पीयूष जी ने स्पष्ट कर दिया है, मैं फिर कह रहा हूं कि हमारे मुख्य अनाज, मुख्य फल और हमारे डेयरी उत्पाद, हमारा मिलेट्स, सबको सुरक्षित रखा गया है। इनके लिए कोई बाजार नहीं खोला जा रहा और इसलिए मैं पूरी तरह से संतुष्ट हूं, बल्कि भारत के किसानों के हितों के संरक्षण के लिए हृदय से धन्यवाद देता हूं।
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday said India's recent trade agreements have placed the country firmly at the center of global economic attention, with major economies actively seeking deeper commercial engagement with India. Now, speaking in the Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister Modi said India's trade pacts with the European Union and the United States have majorly boosted global confidence in India's economic direction. He added that the world was openly welcoming India's new generation of trade deals. Prime Minister Modi noted that this growing eagerness reflects rising trust in India's policy framework and long-term economic vision. India, he said, is no longer viewed merely as a large consumer market, but as a reliable, forward-looking economic partner. The Prime Minister also highlighted that India has already signed trade agreements with 9 major economies, including what he described as the mother of all deals with the 27-nation European Union bloc.
आज पूरा विश्व ग्लोबल साउथ की चर्चा करता है, लेकिन उस चर्चा के सूत्रधार के रूप में आज भारत वैश्विक मंचों पर ग्लोबल साउथ की बुलंद आवाज बन गया है। अनेक देशों के साथ आज भारत फ्यूचर रेडी ट्रेड डील्स कर रहा है। पिछले कुछ ही समय में दुनिया के महत्वपूर्ण 9 बड़े देशों के साथ 9 बड़े हमारे ट्रेड डील हुए हैं और उसमें मदर ऑफ ऑल डील एक साथ 27 देशों के साथ, यूरोपियन यूनियन के साथ।
And India on Thursday also signed the terms of reference for a proposed free trade agreement with the Gulf Cooperation Council, formally restarting negotiations for a long-pending trade pact that has been stalled for nearly 2 decades. The free trade agreement talks between India and the Middle East bloc began with a framework agreement back in 2004, followed by 2 rounds of negotiations in 2006 and 2008. However, the GCC paused trade negotiations globally in 2011, putting the process on hold. Momentum returned after the GCC Secretary General's visit to India in November 2022, with the bloc sharing revised terms of reference in October of 2023. Since then, both sides have exchanged updated versions, culminating in the latest signing. The GCC comprises 6 countries: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman and Bahrain. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said the agreement would significantly strengthen India's ties with the GCC, both geopolitically as well as geo-economically. He noted that the FTA could attract greater investments, create jobs in both regions, enhance food and energy security, and send a strong signal globally about the depth of India-GCC negotiations.
Sectors like food processing, which will help our farmers and fishermen in a very big way, giving them bigger opportunities for value-added products, which are already exported to the GCC nations in substantial measure, which will get a big boost with elimination of duties, tariffs and non-tariff barriers. We will also get a foothold to grow Indian infrastructure and the infrastructure in the GCC together with the high quality companies that are working in the space of infrastructure. Our petrochemical industry will hugely benefit with this partnership. Our information and communication technology, the ICT companies, will get opportunities in the ever-growing GCC market.
And nearly 3/4 of the Air India Group's aircraft analyzed for repetitive defects have been found to suffer from recurring technical issues. This according to data tabled in the Lok Sabha on Thursday. The government said that 377 aircraft have been identified with repetitive defects since Jan last year, out of a total of 754 aircraft analyzed across 6 scheduled airlines. Of these, the Air India Group accounted for a major share. Now, data presented by Minister of State for Civil Aviation showed that 166 Air India aircraft were analyzed, of which 137 were flagged for repetitive defects. In addition, 54 aircraft of Air India Express were identified with recurring issues out of 101 aircraft analyzed. Taken together, 191 of the 267 Air India Group aircraft, or nearly 72%, were found to have repetitive defects. Among other carriers, Indigo saw 148 aircraft identified for repetitive defects out of 405 analyzed. SpiceJet had 16 aircraft flagged out of 43, while Akasa Air reported 14 aircraft with recurring defects out of 32 analyzed. The Aviation Safety Regulator, Director General of Civil Aviation, carried out extensive oversight last year, including 3,890 surveillance inspections, 56 regulatory audits, 492 ramp checks and 84 inspections of foreign aircraft. It also conducted 874 spot checks and 550 night surveillance operations. Home Minister and the Union Corporation Minister Amit Shah launched Bharat Taxi on Thursday, the country's first cooperative-run ride-hailing platform, which will begin services in Delhi, NCR and Gujarat, with plans to expand pan-India over the next 3 years. Launched by 8 leading cooperative organizations, including dairy major Amul, Bharat Taxi aims to boost drivers' income while giving them full ownership of the platform. Shah said rival ride-hailing apps were already cutting commissions and offering incentives after witnessing Bharat Taxi's success during pilot operations. Now, under the model, 80 rupees out of every 100 rupees earned will go directly to drivers, while the remaining 20 rupees, also owned by drivers, will be used for platform operations. Bharat Taxi follows a zero-commission, surge-free pricing model, positioning itself as an indigenous alternative to foreign-funded ride-hailing firms such as Uber, Ola and Rapido. The platform is run by Shakar Taxi Cooperative Limited, registered in June 2025, and already has over 2.5 lakh drivers and 8.5 lakh passengers in Delhi NCR. Shah said Bharat Taxi would become a major welfare platform for drivers nationwide, prioritizing ownership, dignity, security and fair profit sharing, while also placing special emphasis on women's safety through the Sarathi Didi feature.
कभी भी आप टैक्सी चला रहे हो, सहकार टैक्सी के साथ जुड़कर भी टैक्सी चलाओगे, मगर बहुत बड़ा अंतर है। अभी आपकी टैक्सी का पहिया किसी और को कमाई कराता है, अब आपकी टैक्सी का पहिया आपकी कमाई कराएगा। पर मैं सहकारिता के मॉडल में आज जो नई शुरुआत हुई है, कई सारे मॉडल ऐसे वर्ल्ड बेस्ड मॉडल बने हैं, चाहे अमूल हो, चाहे इफको हो, क्रिप्को हो, शुरुआत में लिज्जत हो, किसी में भी शेयर पूंजी बहुत बड़ी नहीं रखी है, क्योंकि ये छोटे लोगों की कोऑपरेटिव है।
Let's move to the commodity space now. Precious metal prices tumbled sharply in the national capital on Thursday, tracking a global sell-off and a stronger US dollar. Silver slumped 10% to 2.68 lakh rupees per kg, while gold fell to 1.60 lakh rupees per 10 grams. Silver plunged by 30,300 rupees or 10.16% from Wednesday's close of 2.98 lakh rupees per kg. Meanwhile, gold of 99.9% purity declined by 4,500 rupees or nearly 3% from its previous level of 1.65 lakh rupees per 10 grams. Spot silver plunged 13.5% to $76.26 an ounce, while gold fell nearly 3% to $4,827 an ounce. The dollar index rose to 97.86, pressuring dollar-denominated currencies. Time for a very short break. When we come back, Rohit Srivastava will join us on the other side to really tell us the IT stocks which continue to be under attack with the disruptions caused by AI. What should investors do about their holdings? That and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9.
पापा, इसमें क्या है?
इसमें देश है बेटा।
कितनी सड़कें, कितने पुल, कितने बांध, कितनी नदियां, कितनी सदियां, कितना आसमान अपनी गोद में लेके जा रही है ये। कितनी रोटियां, कितने खेत, भरे हुए कितने पेट, देखो कितना बड़ा अपना देश अपनी गोद में लेके जा रही है ये। ये जो अपनी गाड़ी है, इस पे भारत आगे बढ़ता है। हम आगे बढ़ेंगे, देश आगे बढ़ेगा। टाटा मोटर्स कमर्शियल व्हीकल्स, बेटर ऑलवेज।
जब 25 साल के प्रत्युष का किडनी का ऑपरेशन हुआ तो पॉलिसी बाजार की टीम ने हॉस्पिटल पहुंचकर 12 लाख का क्लेम अप्रूव करवाने में पूरी हेल्प की। पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो,
Birla Opus Paints.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9 right here on News 9. Let's pivot away to all the action from stock markets. Well, let's begin with the US. Wall Street closed sharply lower on Thursday with the Nasdaq tumbling to its weakest level since November as heavyweights like Microsoft and Amazon led a broad tech sell-off. The drop followed Amazon and Alphabet declaring significant increase in capital spending on artificial intelligence, reigniting concerns over soaring AI costs and pressure on future profits. Take a look.
U.S. stocks ended sharply lower on Thursday, with the Dow and S&P 500 each losing 1.2% and the tech-heavy Nasdaq shedding 1.6%. The tech sell-off continued on investor concerns about heavy spending on artificial intelligence, as well as rapidly improving AI tools that could eat into demand for traditional software. Amal Dargalkar is managing partner and board chairman at Chatham Financial.
We're seeing a lot of selling happening, really driven by the AI apocalypse, if you will. The market has turned from focus on what AI can do in a positive sense for all of these companies, and now is really focused primarily on software companies and seeing what kind of negative impact it can have, particularly on enterprise software firms. So that's been driving a lot of the selling. We've seen it in not just equity markets, but bond and debt markets as well. And this seems to be playing out across the entire market at this point.
Amazon, down nearly 4.5% at the close, plunged another 10% in extended trading after the tech giant projected a jump of more than 50% in capital expenditures this year. The company also forecast first-quarter operating income below analysts' estimates. Shares of Alphabet also closed lower after the company said it plans as much as $185 billion in capex in 2026. Together, the Google parent and its big tech rivals are expected to collectively shell out more than $500 billion on AI this year. Adding to recent losses, Microsoft dropped 5%, Palantir lost more than 6.5%, and Oracle fell 7%. And shares of Qualcomm slid 8.5% after forecasting second-quarter revenue and profit below estimates. Outside the tech world, shares of Estée Lauder plummeted 19% after the Clinique owner forecast annual results below estimates.
And the AI disruption caused tech sell-off that we saw on Nasdaq and in fact pretty much on the entire broader Wall Street has had an impact on Asian as well as Indian markets as they opened a little weaker this morning. A gap down open for both the Sensex and the Nifty. We are looking at about 0.25 percentage point slip for Nifty 50, which is now comfortably below the 25,600 odd levels at about 25,579 at about 9:20 a.m. this morning, just 5 minutes into market open. Meanwhile, Sensex is down just about 10 to 15 basis points from yesterday's close, but below that crucial 83,200 level also. Mid-cap, small-cap taking deeper cuts this morning, and of course the India Volatility Index, India VIX, is maintaining its level around 12. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and see which are the sectors which are bleeding this morning, and the maximum pain, once again, the deepest cuts really coming from the IT stocks. And look at the shares of TCS, Infosys, Wipro, HCL Tech, all taking a massive beating. In fact, TCS, Infosys, the worst hit in the IT pack, down about 1.8% or so. TCS down about 1.7%. Meanwhile, HCL Tech and Wipro also down around 1% or so. Tech Mahindra down about 1.6%. This despite fairly okay, one would call, Q3 results reported by the tech giants. In fact, in the case of TCS, there was also added revenue this year from artificial intelligence. We'll come to the IT story with Rohit Srivastav in just a bit. But in other stocks this morning, ONGC is now looking at some profit selling. Investors are shedding their positions on ONGC, which did see some sort of a bull run over the last two sessions. Meanwhile, Coal India also in the red territory this morning. Mixed pack coming from the consumer durable space. Titan is in the green. Meanwhile, Maruti Suzuki and Mahindra both flirting with little shades of red. Markets really take taking well to Bharti Airtel results, which reported a 20% growth in net profit. But the gap between ARPU of Airtel and Jio could potentially still continue to be a long-term pain point for Airtel. But Bharti Airtel up about 1% or so in trade. Let's start with the big story with Rohit Srivastava about what some are calling the AI apocalypse or the SaaS collapse when it comes to AI disrupting not just Indian IT firms, but globally, the kind of disruption that we are seeing in tech stocks. Rohit, just help us understand what really went wrong over the last 2 or 3 days. We are hearing these big words of Anthropic AI agents who can do all your legal work and who can do all the financial accounting work. But what is the kind of fear which is in markets right now with respect to IT stocks, both globally as well as here in India?
So, well, we already know that the Indian IT sector was struggling for growth for a long period of time. They've always been looked as a defensive, when other parts of the economy are not growing. People do try to park their money in IT as a defensive sector because earnings growth was still there, but it was never been very high. For at least I'm talking about the large cap IT companies like Infosys, Wipro have been growing earnings in single digits. And when you do that, then definitely your valuations come under strain. But what was helping is that there was a global IT wave, and therefore, our IT stocks were still holding on. Now, what we are beginning to see, and we are probably in the early stages, is of an unwind in the overall, cycle for IT, and like you said, the AI bubble theme. Whoever I've been speaking into the US, essentially a lot of the economic growth in the US has been coming because of the AI spending wave that was going on. And even this year, the commitment has been, $300-400 billion for the year. However, the issue in everyone's mind is what is the ROI? Because most of these investments are being done with a futuristic mindset. However, the return on investment is not really clear. So definitely, a couple of good things will come out of the IT wave, like you spoke of Anthropic. You'll come up with business models that will work in the future, just like Amazon happened during the tech bubble. But not everything out there is going to be fruitful, and which is where the valuation concerns start, trickling down to the rest of the sector, that, you start searching for the winners and losers clearly on the basis that, not everybody is going to be a winner on this segment. And that's what the unwinding is leading to. Now, Indian IT in that context is not even much in that space. We essentially users, we are the services sector, suppliers of most of the work that gets done below the surface.
Yeah.
But the question is how much of that work is going to be needed. I think we are still confused on that aspect, and it creates some sense of uncertainty about what will be the impact on business. While we may not know it, but the uncertainty itself can cause some valuation derating, because earnings growth anyway has been amiss for this sector.
Right.
The Indian IT sector, like I said, has been growing earnings in single digits, and we've been giving them a price earnings ratio of 15 to 20 times simply because they acted as a defensive space to be in. But I think that is getting questioned right now.
All right. And is this disruption also, while I understand we are not an IT product-led country when it comes to our IT stocks, but we are pretty much, IT services like you mentioned, but these IT services also getting disrupted with agentic AI where code need not be written by human beings. In fact, I was reading somewhere this morning that the time it takes a human being to write 10 lines of code, an agentic AI can write 10,000 lines of code in the same time. So the kind of efficiency that we are seeing in the AI space when it comes to AI services is something which could be, a big, deep worry for Indian IT companies. So I want to understand medium to long term, because short term we are seeing this pain, and short term we may or may not know whether AI is a bubble or not. But medium to long term, what should investors do, Rohit? Hold on to their IT stocks, or just wait and try and exit and re-enter only if the whole sort of noise around AI settles down?
So we've actually been away. I've not recommended IT stocks for many, many years because of the low growth rates. Even if you look at a ratio chart of, say, Infosys to the Nifty, it has not outperformed the Nifty for 2 decades or more. So that's the truth that we must contend with, which is why I said that it has worked as a defensive play from time to time. Like in the depths of COVID, it was a good trade to get into IT stocks. But it has not been a long-term outperformer relative to the market over a period of time. So that is the thing we already know this. Still, if you're making long-term investments with a 5-year, 10-year horizon, knowing that the sector is underperforming, then you're betting on some kind of a turnaround for the particular sector. Now, most of the money though got made in IT stocks in India in the mid-cap IT space that was actually showing higher rates of growth. So it was not the Infosys, Wipros of the world, but probably the LTIMs and HCL Techs of the world that actually did better, or a Tata Elxsi that were in new spaces, and some of them had product outputs. So there's that differentiation which has already happened when it comes to IT returns. I think most of the mutual funds that invested in mid-cap IT actually showed pretty good returns on the IT space. But it's the large-cap IT that's been suffering more because they're pretty big, and at a macro level, they're not able to grow. And the other part which you mentioned about India being more product or services oriented, that's always been true. I mean, we've been talking about that since the Y2K bubble. So that's 25 years since we've been saying whether we should be more product oriented.
Right.
So it's a little late to say that, but it's allowed. It's still not gone against the sector because there was always some services business coming our way, which is why I said it's become more defensive.
Right.
Over time in any case.
Right. But the stocks that you mentioned, LTIM, for example, is taking an even deeper cut than the large cap IT stocks. This morning is down almost 3%. We are also seeing a lot of pain on Persistent, which is down about 3.5%. Of course, companies which do have large US clients, but the entire IT sector definitely continuing to bring down the overall market sentiment. Let's shift away our focus from IT and talk about the broader sort of, market as such, Rohit. Clarity on the India-US trade deal still awaited. We really don't know how soon that clarity will come, but some estimates suggest that perhaps next week. Right now, we aren't really seeing any sort of momentum build up over the uplift that we saw on the day that the deal got announced. But beyond that, markets seem to have been in some sort of a consolidation phase. We are not really seeing too much directional change in market, barring, of course, IT, which we've spoken about. How do you view the road ahead from here? Because now budget is done. Q3 earnings are more or less all done and dusted, and the India-US trade deal has also been announced. So from here on, what is the trajectory that markets are expected to take?
So it's a difficult path. I was definitely hopeful till December that rate cuts combined with government spending support and the pickup in the credit cycle, those are the positive aspects that can push earnings growth back from single digits to double digits. We have still not seen that. But if we see the spending trajectory of the government from the budget, it's still on a fiscal consolidation mode, which means that the amount of impetus you will get from the government side is not going to be there. And a lot of the growth, especially capex, etc., has actually been government support. Even this year, whatever numbers we've been able to achieve has been because the government has continued to support both on spending and taxes through GST, etc. So fiscal support has been the theme of, I think, this particular bull market, not just in India, but around the world. And moment you see governments going into a fiscal consolidation mode means that government support would be missing and puts the entire onus on the private sector. So it's going to make it quite difficult, I think, to take off from here. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's surely looking difficult. So you're going to need to see some things improve before you jump in with all your feet. And in that backdrop, when you start seeing weakness in global markets, I think that's not helping. So right now it's in any case, a seasonally weak period, this Feb, March.
That's right.
We've seen every year that markets correct between Jan, Feb, March. So I would say be cautious. Let the trade deal, details also come in because we can't read into it. Probably by March is what most are expecting things to get, into black and white. So let us see that and then take a call from there. So we'd still hope, maintain a cautious stance right now because of the global headwinds also hitting along with whatever is happening.
Right. So a cautious stance, so wait and watch is the word coming in as far as strategy for retail investors goes. Meanwhile, Rohit, another headline event in just about 25 minutes or so from now is RBI's MPC outcome. Most analysts are expecting the RBI to continue on that pause button and not really give another rate cut. But overall, to lift sentiment, do you think there is a need for some sort of not just easing of RBI's MPC interest rate cycle, but also overall just making borrowing a little more efficient to kick off all the measures that you spoke about, which came by way of the fiscal policy in the budget statement? Do you think there is room for RBI to give that little bit of cushion to have that private capex spending take off in this year?
So they've already been doing that. They've spoken about transmission in the last two meetings because despite having done multiple rate cuts in the last financial year, you haven't seen transmission at scale because the cost of borrowing for banks has been higher. Still, they seem to be pushing it. You can see that the impact of that on bond yields because bond yields have stopped falling. They've actually gone up quite a bit over the last quarter. And that's something that they need to address. They have announced a lot of OMOs to do that. But we are still to see the impact. So that is the reason why they would be on pause. I think the commentary would help that if they, give any indication that, rates can continue in the downward trajectory, that would definitely help markets. Any sign that, okay, they just want to remain neutral at this moment would leave us with no clear signal on that front, and I'm not sure whether they would do that because of how global bond yields are, because we have seen an uptick in global bond yields because of the Japanese yields going up. Though last night there was a sharp drop in a lot of the US yields also.
Right.
But then that's a one-day move. For the RBI to take a decision, they'll have to look a little longer.
All right, let's leave it at that this morning. Thank you so much, Rohit Srivastava. Pleasure having you here with us on News9. And before we slip into a break, let's take a look at some of the global stories we are following for you this morning. US President Donald Trump urges Russia to negotiate a brand new nuclear arms pact after the expiry of the New START treaty, ends decades of limits of warhead stockpiles. China says it will not take part in any nuclear arms negotiations at this stage, as the end of the US-Russia New START treaty fuels fears of a renewed global arms race. Donald Trump gives Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi his total endorsement before Sunday's legislative vote, confirms White House meeting with Takaichi on 19th of March. The White House unveils a new outline platform, an online platform offering discounted prescription medicines as part of Donald Trump's push to rein in soaring healthcare costs. Shares of Amazon tumbled despite strong sales after the tech giant projected a jump of more than 50% in capital expenditures this year, unsettling investors. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney scraps plans to require all new vehicles to be electric by 2035 while pledging fresh investment to support the EV transition. Employees at the Washington Post stage protests after owner Jeff Bezos announces job cuts affecting more than 300 workers, citing financial strain and restructuring. AI startup Anthropic releases yet another high-performance new model, intensifying competition with primary rival OpenAI in the fast-moving AI race. And the European Central Bank cautious, a surging euro risks pushing inflation too low while playing down immediate threats to the eurozone economy. These stories on the other side of this break. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
पापा इसमें क्या है?
इसमें देश है बेटा।
कितनी सड़कें, कितने पुल, कितनी बांध, कितनी नदियां, कितनी सदियां, कितना आसमान अपनी गोद में लेके जा रही है ये। कितनी रोटियां, कितने खेत, भरे हुए कितने पेट, देखो कितना बड़ा अपना देश अपनी गोद में लेके जा रही है ये। ये जो अपनी गाड़ी है, इस पे भारत आगे बढ़ता है। हम आगे बढ़ेंगे, देश आगे बढ़ेगा। टाटा मोटर्स कमर्शियल व्हीकल्स, बेटर ऑलवेज।
back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Time now to look at the global stories we're following for you this Friday morning. US President Donald Trump has rejected a proposal from Russia to voluntarily extend limits on strategic nuclear weapon deployments after a decades-old arms control treaty expired. Washington is instead pushing for a broader new deal that would include China, a move Beijing has so far firmly resisted, raising fresh concerns over the future of global nuclear stability. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday rejected an offer from Russian President Vladimir Putin to voluntarily extend the New START nuclear arms control treaty. The agreement, which caps the number of deployed strategic warheads at 1,550 on each side, was signed in 2010 and expired Thursday. It allowed for only a single extension, which Putin and former U.S. President Joe Biden agreed to for 5 years in 2021. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt read Trump's social media posts to reporters.
Rather than extend New START, a badly negotiated deal by the United States, which I will add was renegotiated under former President Barack Obama, aside from everything else, is being grossly violated. The president wants to have our nuclear experts work on a new, improved, and modernized treaty that can last long into the future, and that's what the United States will continue to discuss with the Russians.
Earlier, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia was still ready to engage in dialogue with the U.S. if Washington responded constructively to Putin's proposal. Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, urged the two sides to keep working on a deal.
This is a very dangerous period, not to have a framework dealing with these nuclear weapons. We hope very much that the talks will be positive and will be fruitful.
Trump has said he wants to replace New START with a better deal, bringing in China. But Beijing has declined negotiations with Moscow and Washington. It has a fraction of their warhead numbers, an estimated 600, compared to around 4,000 each for the U.S. and Russia.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says any new sanctions on Russia will hinge on the progress of peace talks aimed at ending the nearly 4-year war in Ukraine. Now, speaking after recent discussions involving President Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and advisor Jared Kushner, Bessent said Washington is also weighing measures targeting Russia's so-called shadow fleet. Listen in.
The previous administration added about 297 China-based entities and individuals to our sanctions list under the Russia sanctions program. I want to ask you, do you know how many you have added and designated as part of the Russia sanctions program since you came in as Treasury Secretary?
I do not, but I do know that President Trump sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, which was the major sanctions achievement, and dwarfs everything else, and has brought the Russians to the table for the talks that I was at last.
Can you commit to this Congress that you will take action to sanction Russia's shadow fleet?
I will take it under consideration. We will see where the peace talks go.
The United States and Iran are set to hold high-stakes talks in Oman on Friday, their first direct engagement since Washington joined Israel's strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last June. President Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will lead the negotiations as the White House keeps diplomatic options open, even while refusing to rule out military action amid a growing U.S. troop buildup in West Asia.
Good question, Caroline. Sure. Friday's talks with Iran, they were originally supposed to take place in Turkey. They've now been moved to Oman. Can you tell us the reason for that move?
Look, the president, diplomacy is always his first option when it comes to dealing with countries all around the world, whether it's our allies or our adversaries. And so Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be traveling to Oman for those talks tomorrow, and we will see what comes of those. The president is standing by for an update from them.
US President Donald Trump has unveiled TrumpRx.gov, a new government-backed website aimed at giving Americans access to discounted prescription medicines, a key plank of Trump's push to drive down healthcare costs. The rollout comes as 16 major global drug makers agree to most favored nation pricing deals with Washington, lowering costs of Medicaid and for cash-paying customers through the new platform.
This is a very big deal. People are going to save a lot of money and be healthy. So we're here this evening to celebrate the launch of one of the most transformative healthcare initiatives of all time. There's never been anything like it. Starting tonight, dozens of the most commonly used prescription drugs will be available at dramatic discounts for all consumers throughout a new website. It's called TrumpRx.gov. That's TrumpRx.gov.
US online telehealth firm Hims & Hers says it will offer compounded versions of Novo Nordisk's new Wegovy weight loss pill at a steep discount, intensifying competition in the booming American obesity drug market. The introductory price starts at just $49 a month, roughly $100 cheaper than the branded version. Take a look.
Shares of Novo Nordisk plunged again on Thursday after online telehealth firm Hims & Hers said it will offer a compounded version of Novo's new Wegovy weight loss pill at about $100 less than the brand name price. Novo said it would take legal action against Hims & Hers following that announcement. Hims said it would offer a $49 one-month introductory price for the compounded weight loss pill, and that the price will rise to $99 a month for those who purchase a 5-month plan and pay up front. The price is higher for a 3-month subscription. The announcement came after Novo warned on Wednesday that pricing pressure was unprecedented for its weight loss medicines and dropped its forecast, sending its European shares down 17%. Novo, like rival Eli Lilly, has been forced to cut prices in the U.S., its biggest market, under pressure from President Donald Trump. It launched its Wegovy pill last month at a discount to the injection to lure customers who pay directly on its website. Novo and Hims had a partnership in 2025, allowing Hims to offer injectable Wegovy, but the two companies walked away, with Novo saying Hims had wrongfully marketed copycats of Wegovy. Hims accused Novo of attempting to control how its clinicians make decisions. Hims' compounded copy of the Wegovy pill is made from semaglutide, the same active ingredient as the one from Novo. But the Food and Drug Administration in September issued a warning regarding its marketing of the drug, stating claims like, quote, same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy are misleading, as compounded drugs are not FDA approved. In a statement released Thursday, Novo Nordisk said, quote, the action by Hims & Hers is illegal mass compounding that poses a significant risk to patient safety, adding that it would take action to, quote, protect patients, our intellectual property, and the integrity of the U.S. gold standard drug approval framework.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has scrapped the country's national electric vehicle mandate, signaling a major shift in Ottawa's climate policy after earlier rolling back emissions caps and clean electricity rules. The move reverses a 2023 target that required 20% of vehicles sold by 2026 to be emission-free, a policy heavily criticized by automakers and complicated by shifting U.S. support for electric vehicles.
Canada will set a new, more ambitious, sovereign path to reduce automobile emissions. We'll drive down emissions by more than doubling the stringency of Canada's vehicle GHG standards by 2035, achieving the equivalent emissions reductions of a 75% EV adoption rate. We won't stop there. By leveraging new investments in EV production, consumer incentives, and charging infrastructure, we'll work towards achieving the equivalent of a 90% EV adoption rate by 2040.
The European Central Bank has left interest rates unchanged, offering little guidance on future policy and reinforcing expectations that borrowing costs could remain steady as growth stabilizes and inflation hovers near target levels. Take a look.
The European Central Bank left interest rates on hold as expected on Thursday. It played down the impact of dollar moves on its future policy choices and said its inflation outlook remained largely unchanged. The Eurozone's central bank has been on hold since ending a year-long run of rate cuts in June. Surprisingly resilient growth coupled with easing price pressures have taken nearly all the pressure off policymakers to provide any further support. In a statement, ECB chief Christine Lagarde acknowledged global trade policy and geopolitical tensions, but said an updated assessment still saw inflation stabilising at its 2% target in the medium term.
The economy remains resilient in a challenging global environment. Low unemployment, solid private sector balance sheets, the gradual rollout of public spending on defence and infrastructure, and the supportive effects of our past interest rate cuts are underpinning growth.
Asked what impact on its outlook last week's dollar tumble and rebound might have, Lagarde said the bank noted that dollar depreciation wasn't new.
What we observed collectively is that the dollar has depreciated measurably against the euro, but not in the last few days, but since March 2025. That's when you see the significant change at the time.
Inflation, the ECB's primary focus, slipped to 1.7% across the Eurozone last month on low energy costs and could dip further before a forecast rebound next year. But if anything, longer-term inflation expectations have been inching up, not down, on solid activity data and energy price rises.
And finally, as we close this edition of Morning Brief, Bitcoin hovered near a key $70,000 support level as markets turned cautious this week, while US investigators reportedly examined whether crypto platforms helped Iranian officials evade sanctions. We leave you with this roundup of the biggest crypto headlines of the week. Thank you so much for watching.
Bitcoin slumps, Iran's digital activity booms. This is Crypto Weekly. Bitcoin was on the cusp of breaking below the key $70,000 level on Thursday, as a slide in the world's largest cryptocurrency showed no signs of stopping. It tumbled more than 3% in the Asian session, to its lowest level since November 2024. The latest rout in cryptocurrencies has come hard and fast. Analysts say it was triggered by the nomination of Kevin Warsh as the next Federal Reserve Chair. Due to expectations, he could shrink the Fed's balance sheet. Tether's CEO said there had been misconception about the crypto group's fundraising plans. It was after Britain's Financial Times reported it had scaled back its ambitions following investor pushback over a proposed $500 billion valuation. CEO Paolo Ardoino told Reuters the initial range was discussed as a maximum in hypothetical scenarios, not as a target and not as a capital raising plan. A White House meeting aimed at breaking a stalemate between major US banks and crypto firms ended without an agreement. It underscores industry divisions that continue to threaten progress on landmark digital asset legislation. The closed-door session was led by the White House's Crypto Council. And crypto activity in Iran is booming. US investigators are reportedly examining whether specific crypto platforms have facilitated sanctions evasions by Iranian officials. Crypto transaction volumes hit an estimated $8 to $10 billion last year in the Islamic Republic, as both state-linked groups and retail investors turned to digital currencies. That was according to estimates from TRM Labs and Chainalysis.
रश्मि, ये मैडम बड़े शहर से छोटे शहर बसने जा रही है, बताओ। छोटे शहरों में ही तो है बड़े बड़े अखाड़े।
नए नए दावपेच सीखेगी और फ्यूचर में मेडल जीतेगी।
पर बेटा इनका फ्यूचर।
बड़े पापा SBI लाइफ से इनका फ्यूचर सिक्योर है।
अभी तो इसकी जीत का इरादा पक्का है। करो पूरे अपने इरादे,
अपनों से किए सभी वादे।
SBI लाइफ अपने लिए,
अपनों के लिए।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
जब विकास जी के लिवर का ऑपरेशन हुआ तो पॉलिसी बाजार की टीम ने हॉस्पिटल पहुंचकर 50 लाख रुपए का क्लेम अप्रूव करवाने में पूरी हेल्प की। पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
Ever wondered what makes the night come alive? Where flavors, lights and laughter dance in harmony. When the sun sets, stories rise. Of kitchens, cocktails and charisma. What makes your city's night so happening? Let's find out.
Good service, good food and a good location. You need to explore, you need to experiment.
But they will never forget how they felt when they came to your restaurant.
Being a chef, it's my priority to deliver taste in a plate with good presentation, unique innovation.
My definition of mixology would be to get people drunk in a safe and happy way.
Don't drink on the job, that's for sure.
Mixology, you can play around with anything. You can create the stories, you can create the recipes.
Let's cheers on that note with our friendship.
Indulge in the finer things in life with Radico presents Lounge Nights. Discover the creme de la creme of India's culinary and nightlife scene. From trendy bars to exquisite restaurants, we've got you covered.
When Trump captures Maduro, News9 breaks it first.
It's happening far away, but it has tremendous consequence for the world. What happens next?
Biggest international headline of the hour.
The US has conducted military strikes.
This is the Venezuelan president.
Maduro faces multiple charges including narco-terrorism.
This is Maduro being taken to the New York court. Donald Trump indicated that Greenland might be next.
Where will Donald Trump stop?
A dramatic U.S. operation, power shifts in Venezuela. High-stakes geopolitics unfolding. What does this mean for Venezuela? What does it mean for the world? And what comes next? On point with the facts, unmissable insights. In your interest always. Fastest alerts, hard facts, 360-degree analysis. From breaking news to deep dives, when the world changes, News9 leads. News9, always on top.
Bangladesh is on edge. Protesters also targeted symbols of Bangladesh's political history.
Mr. Yunus is being the new Jinnah of Bangladesh.
What defines this mob? Who are these people? Where do they come from? Pratham Alo, the newspaper, has also called it a terror attack.
Yunus is the Osama bin Laden of today's world.
The state has no strength, or those who are on the street are the state themselves. There's nothing called spontaneous mob. There's a theory called you keep the pot boiling.
This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000, forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, they're left to enjoy.
वैसा ही होगा, नर्सरी में होगा, मगर रेसिडेंट में oh my God बहुत अच्छा लगा। हम जस्ट रिफ्रेशमेंट ले रहे थे, अचानक वो आ गए, जस्ट हमें एक सरप्राइज हो गया कि वाओ ये आ गए।
यार ठंड लग रही होगी।
से मिलने के एक्साइटमेंट में सब भूल गए।
नमस्ते बेटा। वनकम, अच्छी अकाल। हेलो अच्छी।
हेलो अच्छी साहब।
उनने हम लोग को ये आसाम के गमछे पहना है, जो कि मैं बहुत लकी फील कर रहा हूँ।
सर ने बोला मानसी कुछ नहीं गाएगी, मैं खुश हो गई, सर ने मेरा नाम ले लिया। सारी दुनिया तेरे पीछे मुश्किलों से लड़ता चल, बढ़ता चल। तो उस समय हम कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं कि कौन सा पैटर्न सही है।
मैं प्रधानमंत्री बन गया ना, वो भी कोई बताता है ऐसे करो, कोई कहता है ऐसे करो।